morning and welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personality, politicians, and perspectives. This morning we're going to leave out the politicians because we lack our FCC license, and I don't want to open that up for me to spout off and say something wrong and have Mr. Ash lose his FCC license, so we leave the politicians out of it. We start kudo all the time with a Viewpoint with a kudo or two. Recently, we had a veterans gathering at the west side there, fundraiser for the veterans, and a lot of people showed up, and a lot of great veterans. That was quite successful. Marcia Finance told me that we raised over $9,000 just on the auction alone, which I thought was outstanding. So kudos to those people who went out there and attended and participated. Their participation was more important than anything else because they helped make that a real great success. And in lieu of that, in view of that subject, I'll let Judith Kay introduce our guest this morning because we're going to talk about veterans and veterans affairs and veterans problems. So go right ahead, Judith Kay.
Can I kind of kudo-ish just a little bit
Well, let me
first?
talk to Jim about that and see if we got enough time. Yes,
I don't want to step on your toes.
Yeah.
But I would like to say happy birthday to Cynthia Lynn Busby Bounds, better known as Cince.
Her daughter, by golly.
Today is her very birthday.
So, can we get a stand-up ovation for
Anyway, happy birthday, Cince. I would like to introduce our guest. His name is Dan Benedict.
That's me.
And he is the superintendent of the Logan County Veterans Assistance Commission and active in veteran affairs as well, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I think it would be interesting to know some of the boards you serve on and what their duties are to the veterans. And one thing I'd kind of like to get into is something we were talking about before we went on the air. Several times I've wondered in my heart of hearts how there will be someone who has served in the armed forces and things have kind of gone south on their life, and it doesn't seem like anybody picks up the ball and backs them up. And we'll have to talk about some of the things that a person has to adhere to as far as the social graces are concerned, that make them eligible for assistance. Yes. So Dan, thank you very much for being with us today, and I will defer to Mr. G on the power on my left.
Well, I would power. Could I have that in writing on your contract? Mr. Benedict, first and foremost, I'd like to establish what is the Illinois Veterans Commission. Let's get down to basics first and foremost and define what that is, and then we'll talk about your job.
Alrighty, so thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be back. I love my visits here. As you said, I'm the Veteran Assistance Commission Superintendent. I am here for the Logan County residents with anything and all veteran-related services. So whether that be emergency financial assistance, help with disability claims, help with getting your VA loan certificate of eligibility, help with getting education started, anything and everything that you can think of for veterans, I will do my best to help you out with. I'm an accredited veteran service officer. Every year I attend training to keep my accreditation with the Department of Veteran Affairs, so I can help you with your disability claims. And that seems to be the lion's share of my job. And going back to what Judy was talking about, some of the boards I serve on, again, I'm the superintendent of the VAC. I'm also on the Central Illinois Veteran Commission Board, whose mission is to help at-risk veterans find permanent and holistic services, as well for housing and holistic services to get their lives back on track. And I'm also on the Logan County Mental Health Advisory Commission. What we do is we get together and talk about, we're in the beginning stages, we talk about some of the issues affecting mental health issues in Logan County, and we advise the county board with that information.
Have those sorts of issues proliferated as we've had war after war during our lifetimes, during the world's lifetime?
Right. So we just, without getting into the political part of it, ended our longest war with our withdrawal from Afghanistan. So the entire time that I was in, I joined in 1990 and I got out in 2013 of the Air Force, 23 years, 1 month and 20 days.
Boy, I
Well, you got that down pat, haven't you?
I like your science there.
We were at war the entire time. So
think
with
of that
that
now. Think
comes
of
the
that.
deployments and everything that goes with that, all the physical traumas, the mental traumas. So yeah, there's a myriad of issues that come up with anytime you send people off to war.
I'd like to bring a salute to the front with a flag flying for our fellow veteran Joe Shaler, who kind of, if I'm correct, Mr. Benedict, is kind of personally responsible for getting us our office, the Veterans Commission office here in Lincoln, Logan County. I know he worked very hard on that, and
Yes,
he was
sir.
tickled to death when we finally got that. And let's speak to where you are, where somebody can find you now. You're right on the corner of the library, what I call the library corner, across from Latham Park.
Right.
So let's identify where your physical office is, where people can find Danny Benedict.
Yes, sir. My office is at 122 North McLean Street.
One block down from the City Hall.
Yes, I'm in the Logan building. Most people know that as the John Logan building where the assessor is. The assessor's on one side of the building, I'm on the other. I'm on the side that faces the library. Phone number's 217-732-8388, and I'm there from 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday.
8:30 to 4:30. Well, that's pretty good hours. That's not too bad, you know.
Yes, sir.
You have a full workload. Let's get the elephant out of the compound and trot him out on the desk here. Judith mentioned mental problems. That, of course, brings up PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. In my time, they called it, well, even before my time, for God's sakes, they called it shell shock.
Yes, sir.
And nobody had the scientific data or the knowledge of what had gone on to these men out there in these terrific, horrific war conditions. By the way, I just read a very interesting book called Greenfield, and it's about a Jewish family who were fleeing the Russians, and they were caught between the Russians and the Nazis. And they were trying to go west, and it's a novel, but it's based on a true story, and it's quite interesting. Anyway, let's get back to serious business here. Post-traumatic stress disorder, is that a thing that you see on a real frequent basis, or occasionally now? I would hope the latter would be so.
Well, unfortunately, I would say the majority of my clients that come in are seeking some sort of counseling service or claim in order to get VA benefits for PTSD. There's been a lot of folks around here who've deployed, seen things that are pretty horrific, done things or had things happen to their buddies who didn't make it home. It's just left a lot of psychic trauma on them.
There are other organizations who kind of step up to the plate and help you help them, too. You mentioned before we went on the air that the Salvation Army will help with assistance, for instance.
Right. The Salvation Army, they're about a block away from me, has a program for helping homeless vets, the vets that are more traditionally homeless versus the at-risk, who don't have a place to stay. So they give them a place to stay temporarily, which can be extended. I believe it's 90 days. It can be extended up I'm not sure how far out they'll go, but the Department of Veteran Affairs has a program with the Salvation Army.
Back in the day when they closed LDC, there was a talk in town, and I don't know how close to the truth it was, but that there were a couple of those buildings that were brand new that they were going to use for homeless vets. And I thought that was real smart. Obviously, I was mistaken because
You're dealing with politicians, so why would you be
it
mistaken?
never came to fruition, and why not?
Well,
I mean, there they are. They're just going to fall down.
you said the magic word, smart. So
Oh,
you have
there
to
we
take
go.
that out of the equation.
We
sometime.
nailed it, huh?
So that was part of the initiative I worked with Joe Shaler and others. And eventually we became the Central Illinois Veterans Commission to help solve the problem for the at-risk veterans, the veterans that are staying in a buddy's basement or on a friend's couch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have a dry roof over their head, but that's, it's pretty temporary and tenuous at best. So we were trying to figure out a way we could help those folks get on their feet, get them a stable environment so the rest of their life could fall into place. It's pretty hard to have a vision and a goal for your future if you don't even have a place to hang your hat.
I should imagine.
So we started trying to get the LDC, the new houses that they built out there, and we worked several years with at least 2 governors, probably 5 directors of the Illinois Department of Veteran Affairs, and several congressmen, state representatives, all who thought it was a great idea, but it seemed like it never got anywhere for one reason or another.
They didn't want a great idea? It would be so refreshing.
Yeah, it would be refreshing. But so I'm not sure really what happened in the upper levels of government with that. So we decided to go private.
Well, I can tell you what happened in that. Nothing.
Right.
648-5510.
I think
Our
Bill's
number to
trying to
call.
make me be quiet.
We would. Our guest this morning is Danny Benedict, Illinois Veterans Commission. We'd like to think, Pollyannish thinking that it is, that we don't have any veterans who are in trouble. The real world says that's not so, and it's true in every community. We'd like to think that there's no need for housing for veterans. The real world says that's not so. Would you like to talk a little bit about the tiny houses just a minute, Mr. Benedict? That was a great thing that has been accomplished, and it's an ongoing problem, so I'll defer to you now, Dan.
Alrighty. So that's a perfect segue from what we're talking about with the LDC. We're spinning our wheels there, not getting anywhere. So we decided after that we would just kind of forget the public sector and try to go private. Joe Shaler and some other individuals found a great organization called 2x4s for Hope. They're based out of Quincy, Illinois, and they've been building tiny homes for veterans across the state. They're a relatively new startup, been around for a few years. But what they do, they build tiny homes and they give them free of charge to the veterans. And when I say tiny homes, they're not that tiny. They're just about 600 square feet, and the layout's really smart and efficient. So I would personally call it a small home, but they're called
It's a definition.
tiny homes. Right.
It's a definition.
Semantics. So that's where we went. We partnered with these folks. We got a house built there on the corner of College and 6th Street, and that thing went up in 2 weeks, and it looks beautiful. We've got 2 more pads, so we're looking to build 2 more houses. We don't have dates for those yet, and they're really nice little homes, and it's a safe and secure place for a veteran to hang their hat.
And it's not wrong electronically to pass the hat, if you please. We could use donations for that.
For sure.
That's a wonderful thing. You mentioned tiny, and that is small. But if you've been living in your car on a one-room somewhere back in the alley, that's pretty palatial.
Yes.
So let's put things in perspective.
Right.
And the gentleman who happily was now is living in that home, if I understand it, when he walked in there, the refrigerator had produce and groceries in it. The cabinets were stocked with provisions. So
Yes.
it was a wonderful start, really a great kickstart for any individual.
Yes. When he gets the keys to the house, it's livable. He goes in there, there's linen on the bed, there's towels in the cupboard, there's, like you said, there's food in the cabinets. Pretty much everything he needs to live is there. All he has to do is walk in the house.
It's a marvelous charity.
Yes.
It's really a heart-filling charity to see that. When this next one opened up, we'll hope it'll be in the spring so that the weather will be decent. That day that the gentleman was presented his house, I thought was a great day in Logan County.
Yes, it was. And unfortunately, I had a prior commitment, so I wasn't there for the ribbon cutting. But I was there. Helping to build it and everything. So every time I go by there, it just makes me smile and makes me happy that we were able to do that for him.
Yeah.
And I look forward to building the next ones for the other one.
I'd like to pass the torch to Haji Patel, who donated the real estate on the corner of 6th and College there. It was a nice thing for Haji to have done, and I think it's appropriate to give him public recognition.
Oh, for sure. And not only that, his generosity extended beyond that. He donated his banquet hall for our recent fundraiser, where we had silent auction and other auctions that Mike Mosky did our auction for us. We had Brushfield playing. We raised quite a bit of money. So he donated his banquet hall for us to use, and so he's just been a great partner, just really behind us and helping out tremendously.
So I think it's appropriate to recognize somebody who steps up and swings a bat like that. So thank
Nobody
you,
can
Haji.
do anything by themselves. You have to have other people who take up an interest in something and assist.
Right.
And obviously he did that.
Right.
You know,
And we've
speaking
had
of
tremendous community support.
Yeah, speaking of assistance, we get an assist every Wednesday morning by sponsors, and if we don't take a couple of minutes to recognize them, hello, go right ahead, Jim. And having expressed our appreciation to our sponsors, to whom we are really indebted and thank them very much, we're right back here live this morning. The program, of course, is Viewpoint, appearing each Wednesday morning at WLCN 96.3 on your FM dial, 8:15 to 0900 hours. Our guest this morning is Mr. Dan Benedict, and Dan is in charge of the Logan County Veterans Commission. It's down exactly one block from the City Hall. It's what was known as the Logan Building. And that's where you go pay your county taxes if you don't want to run upstairs to the courthouse. Dan is doing a very important job for our veterans every day. He never knows when he opens his door what kind of problem he's going to have. Some veterans have serious problems. Some have problems that can just be taken care of with a couple of phone calls. By the way, do you run into much, Mr. Benedict? I mentioned off-air earlier this morning the fire that they had many years ago now, many years ago. Illinois veterans' records were burned up in the St. Louis fire. Has that proven to be a problem for you as you pursue solutions for veterans?
I've actually ran into that on several occasions. Mainly it was the Army records that were burnt up.
Well, I'm glad they took care of us Air Corps guys.
It was some
Mr. Benedict is an Air Corps veteran, by the way.
That's right, 23 years. Very proud of that. But just due to the section of the building that caught fire, it was mainly Army records that got burnt up. But there were other service members' records that were burnt up.
Yeah.
And that fire burnt for, I'm told, over a week.
Oh my.
As you can imagine, just a building full of paper and consumables be like a coal fire, about impossible to get out.
Oofta.
Well, that's, for a lot of the guys whose perhaps livelihood is involved in those records, and access to them is just necessary.
Right.
And I don't know what in the world people in your position had to do. you just do the best you can and work around the problem. But veterans, if you have a problem, whether you think it's large or small, discuss it with Mr. Benedict. He's a fine gentleman. Well, he got that from the Air Corps, so naturally, I'll be serious about this. Mr. Benedict is very knowledgeable in Veterans Affairs and where to go for help. So 648-5510. Somebody may know something about a veteran that needs a little assistance, and Mr. Benedict will be glad to help you. Go ahead, Judith K.
I was losing already what I was thinking.
Go right. Well, reach back there in that cell that's been occupied for a long time.
The lonely cell?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's get back to what we were talking about a little bit ago about people who are honorably or dishonorably discharged from the service. Now, the records that exist
Yes, ma'am.
would support one way or another, wouldn't they? And it makes a difference if you go to get some benefit from the benefits.
Correct.
If you can follow that.
No, I don't know. What did she say, Jim? Go ahead,
right.
Dan.
For sure. According to Department of Veteran Affairs, a veteran is somebody who has a honorable discharge or a general discharge without bad conduct. When you're talking about bad conduct discharges, dishonorable discharges, other than honorable discharges, the Department of Veteran Affairs benefits drop off. It's a very steep cliff, pretty much. If you don't have that honorable discharge or a general discharge, most of the benefits are going to disappear.
What does general discharge mean?
It usually means that the service member either wasn't a good fit for the military, maybe got in a little bit of trouble. I don't want to characterize it just as that. There's many different ways to get a general discharge, but it's generally where somebody it wasn't working out for them in the military for one reason or another, but they weren't really in trouble. It wasn't really a bad situation.
No heinous actions.
Right. But it may not have been the best circumstances either, to where you get an honorable discharge. So that's a really broad area.
It's what we had when I was in called the sad sack. just
Is that right?
Sad sack just never quite measured up. Nice guy.
Right.
But just could never, he was always out of line if you were marching in a formation. I mean, he just never could confirm.
Right.
And that's just realism.
Right. And their expectations are pretty high in the military. And, it's just human nature. Not everybody's going to fit in and be able to adapt. So that's where you get some of that.
So then they fall into this general category. Not that they're a bad person, it's just that
Correct.
things went awry.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Benedict, if you have a family who has a veteran that has PTSD, but it's not really recognized as how do they, let's say a family comes to you, they've got Joe Smith with them, and he does have a bad case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. Where do you go with that?
Well, you get a lot of that. There's people don't want to seek help, even though they need it, and it would greatly benefit their family life and themselves. Just because the stigma, they don't want that label. I've got a mental health problem. Mm-hmm. So you see quite a bit of that. And what we try to do, we try to reduce the stigma. We try to explain that post-traumatic stress disorder is born out of really exceptional circumstances that human beings in our social upbringing aren't supposed to be in. You're not supposed to be, you're not brought up to be doing acts of war and witnessing that. Mm-hmm. So it affects people differently. Not everybody gets PTSD, but some people it really bothers. So we try to get rid of that stigma.
But surely in this, use the term loosely, enlightened age, we're more understanding of that, don't you think?
I think public perception and awareness and training has really gotten out there to where people understand it better, but there's still that stigma that people feel, I don't want that to be me. I don't want that label. So we have counseling services we can refer people out to that we'll pay for at the VAC. We'll bring counselors into the office. We really try to tailor it to the individual. So there's services out there. The stigma is not what it used to be. And it's, some people think they're being brave and tough.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Just dealing with it. But really, the more brave, the harder thing to do is to get help.
Isn't that more prevalent amongst the male part of humanity?
The machismo, the male bravado. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
Sexism coming up again, Jim.
Well,
but
be what it be.
There's that, and there's just the universal stigma. They don't want that label. They don't want male, female. There's a variety of things. Coming to light now more than ever is the military sexual trauma, and the female veterans who something happened in service, and maybe they didn't get the counseling that they should have gotten, or it was swept under the rug. I'm starting to see that more and more.
Do you ever have a client come in, Mr. Benedict, who was discharged from the service without an honorable discharge, and they want to change that category for whatever reason? Most reasons would be valid. Do you have it? And that's probably, I suspect, a little difficult to do.
It is very difficult, but not impossible.
That's interesting.
I'll give you just two quick examples. You have somebody that maybe got into drugs or something. Make this easy, and he got a dishonorable discharge because he was doing stuff with drugs he shouldn't have been. That person probably not going to get his discharge upgraded. But you also have the veterans who deployed, got PTSD from what they saw and experienced, and came back and had a hard time adjusting. So they weren't performing as well. They maybe started turning to alcohol and just many other things that could come from the PTSD. Well, that might lead up to them getting a dishonorable discharge. A situation like that might be a little easier if you could build a case to at least get that upgraded to a general, possibly even honorable.
But a lot of veterans are aware of and take advantage of the education that's offered to them when they've been in the service. It's different if you're going to be me than if you're going to be a doctor or something, Now, would you fund the education of somebody who has high aspirations and wants to be a doctor?
I wish I could fund their education, but being a county office, our budget isn't quite that good. But I can help them get their Department of Veteran Affairs education benefits, and they will fund their education through the GI Bill, or maybe dependent education assistance. If they have certain disabilities, even their kids could go to school.
Do many people take advantage of that?
Generally, the ones that are getting out know about their GI Bill, and they take advantage of it if they'd like to. And the people that are eligible for the dependent education assistance, they know about those programs.
That was one of the great things as it came out of the World War II, the GI Bill. My goodness, it educated thousands upon thousands of men and women too, because even in those moldy days, we had ladies' service. We had the WACs, we had the WAFs, and they were important. By the way, they performed a pretty good service. Part of the service in my part of the Air Corps was they were trained technically, and then that released somebody on such and such an air base to be going off to some combat area. So it turned out to be a good thing nationally to have the ladies be a part of our military. Those are long gone days.
Oh, right.
Thank goodness for that.
Most units are, the combat units are integrating now as we speak with females on the front line. So I don't know exactly where that's at. That's more the active component.
It's kind of hard to visualize a young lady like Judith Kay here sitting on my right in the cockpit of a fighter plane. But the world is, we have those young ladies present right now in our Air Corps.
Oh, yeah. There's women have been fighter pilots for
a long time now.
Very long time.
And to prove that women are smarter than men, some of them are doggone good navigators.
Well,
of course, I know some people that can't find their way from Burton View to New Holland.
No. Anybody I know?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Well, there is that.
Dan, is there one particular phase of your service to the veterans that would stand out as takes more of your time than other Veterans Affairs?
I would say helping the older veterans who are seeking assistance.
Wish you hadn't said that.
Who are seeking assistance with assisted care or nursing home. There's the paperwork is pretty intense. So you're reaching into a lot of financials, a lot of supporting documents.
Are people in that phase of their life helped considerably?
If you get the VA to approve it, yes. The VA, it's kind of a toss-up sometimes. It seems like to me, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but sometimes I get really disappointed in some of the denials that come back from the VA, because you send it in and they have to approve it.
Well, you probably spend a goodly amount of time with these people and get to really know them, where they don't have that advantage.
Right.
They don't feel for them the way you do.
Right.
648-5510. Our guest this morning, Mr. Dan Benedict, our Veterans Affairs Commission right here in Lincoln, Illinois, right opposite Latham Park and our wonderful Carnegie Library there. Dan's there every day to help veterans solve their problems. Now, the problems may be big to a veteran, but small to somebody with Dan's expertise and knows how to go about getting problems solved. How long has this been in existence, Mr. Benedict?
We've been there for about 5 years now. Started out part-time for about a year and a half, and then went full-time from there. I was working 3 days a week. Now I work 5 days a week. So been there for about 5 years. And just to mention the human aspect, you don't have that anymore. Every time you call the VA or any place really, it's push 1, push 5. Eventually you might talk to somebody. And you get these papers from the VA, these forms, and you have 20 pages to fill out. It's kind of daunting, especially to technologically challenged folks out there that don't really do a lot on computers. That's what I'm there for. I'm there to help fill out those forms, fill out the paperwork, explain the process. The people that try to do it themselves, muddle their way through the paperwork, send it in, and then it's just gone. I'm there to explain the next steps, what's going to happen. So I'm there to help bridge that gap.
And that's important.
Excuse me, Judith. I'm sorry. I stepped on your line.
No, you do that.
Bad things you hear once in a while happen to people with the VA. I want to go on the other side of that coin. I've had nothing but good experience with Veterans Administration. Number one, they helped me hear. Without these hearing aids, I'd be dead in the water. And they took care of that, and I'm just eternally grateful for that. And for the folks who need medication and so forth, they make it easy for you to refill your prescriptions. I've had nothing but good experience when I go down to either Peoria or Springfield to the VA clinics. Right. They just have been always very polite and very pleasant and very professional. So hats off from my experience with the Veterans Administration.
The healthcare has really, I hear nothing but positive things, just like what you said. The VHA, part of the VA, the Veterans Healthcare system, top-notch. They have state-of-the-art equipment. Obviously, not everybody's going to have a perfect outcome that they want, but what I hear are good things about them.
Sometimes veterans just get to a place where they run up against what seems to them an impenetrable wall. They don't know where to turn. And that's where they should turn and go right back to your office to start from ground zero and build back. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. I like to get them first before they start building anything with the VA, because that can make it difficult if something was started, and then I try to pick it up later. So I would like to see them first before they try anything with the VA. That way I can build their whole package that needs to be sent in and get everything done, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and give everything. Because the VA, they're full of people. A lot of the people there, they want to help. But if you don't send them and give them everything they need, they can't help you. And that's where I come in. I make sure they get everything they need to help that veteran. Everything they need to make that decision that will be favorable for the veteran.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. If you know a veteran out there who seems to be wondering or is confirmed with you in conversation that he's kind of run at wit's ends, Mr. Benedict is a beginning source to get those knots untangled.
Yes, sir. Whether that's a holistic approach, whether they want counseling, whether they trying to get some health care and maybe some disability benefits, we can do all that, get it all going. Maybe they don't want the counseling. Maybe they only want the health care, or maybe they only want to try to get some benefits for an injury that they had while they're in. It's still affecting them. I'm there for everything.
But if someone needs, or even thinks that they need, mental help, and they don't know where to turn, at least you can give them some inkling as to how to start that process. And that's a very important thing, because there are people out there who wander around aimless, so to speak, and are hurting mentally, if nothing else. And it's a serious problem for every family that has a veteran.
And through no fault of their own. It's just not easy to get information and know where to even start with the government.
Right. And if they just want to come up and talk, I'll talk with them. Like I said, I was in for 23 years. I worked with Army, Marines, Navy, even the Coast Guard a couple times, believe it or not.
Yeah. Now, there's a service one doesn't hear much about, a very important service to our taxpayers and our government, the United States Coast Guard, but it's not one of the major services unless you serve in the Coast Guard. Then it becomes a major service.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
but at least the Coast Guard now has the Space Force. The Space Force is now the baby service, and the Coast Guard can kind of maybe get some of the heat off their back a little.
Is it a newer branch of the service? Is that
they're the newest
the
branch?
Problem?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, the Coast Guard?
No.
They've been around for quite some time.
Since World War I.
Right. They started out as the lifeguard service. Something to do with that, but eventually they fall under Department of Homeland Security now.
Yeah, I think that was correct.
Times of war, they fall under the Navy.
We don't have a department out here at Sugar Creek yet. We've closed that.
You've closed that installation.
I will say, when I was stationed off at Air Force Base, Omaha, Nebraska.
Yes, Omaha. Yeah.
I drove down by the river, and there was a Coast Guard station there on the river, and I just thought to myself, join the Coast Guard and go to Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
They'd think you made a mistake if you said that, wouldn't they?
That's like the comedian George Goebel became one of the great lines. He was a flight instructor during the Second War, and they were kidding him on the air about it, and he was pretty much a laconic comedian. And he said, well, I'll tell you one thing, no Japanese ever got past Omaha.
Oh, he was a clever guy. Oh, yeah.
And before we close, Dan, let's pass the microphone to you. You may have some comments that you'd like to make as we close Viewpoint.
Oh, for sure. Again, thank you for having me, and thank you to the folks of Logan County for voting to tax themselves, to pass the tax levy that pays for the VAC, that pays for everything that we do for our vets. If it wasn't for the voters, we wouldn't exist. So just thank you to the residents of Logan County, and thank you to the veterans for providing a system of government that allows us to do what we do, live the American dream. And I just want to say that there's people here to support you in a myriad of different services. If you'd like to just come in and talk, come to my office, give me a phone call. I can help you out with education benefits, get your certificate eligibility for your home loan, your VA home loan, which is usually cheaper in interest rates, and just anything. I'm there for you. I'm there for family members. If you're a family member of a veteran and you have questions about benefits that may apply to you, give me a call. And I just want to say thanks for having me.
Dan Benedict, we appreciate very much your giving your time this morning. You know, most of us proudly served, and I mean that term, came back to home and got on with living again, and just proud of that particular service. But things have gone on pretty well for us for the most part, and we don't need those services. Having said that, those who need the services that you provide for our veterans in that veterans office there are vital to them and their families. It's just not for the veterans, it's for the families too. So, Dan Benedict, thank you very much, sir. We salute you.
Thank you.